I don't object to putting those in the record, but I do object, Senator Sullivan, to your blanket attack on Democrats as being the reason that critical minerals aren't
I said
getting
one of the
developed.
reasons. One of the reasons. It is.
Well,
There's no doubt in my mind.
Senator Shaheen.
I live it every day.
Senator Shaheen is recognized. We'll take a second round.
well, I think a better way to address this issue would be for us to work together and to not name call and try and educate people on why this is so critical, as you have been trying to do. So I would hope that you
I
wouldn't
would
just
welcome the
decide
chance
that
to.
because I have a D after my name, I'm not going to be supportive of critical minerals.
I'm not saying everybody, and you've been great on this, Senator Shaheen.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. I want to go back to the equity investment question that Senator Reid and Senator Wicker both raised, because it's not clear to me what the criteria is that you're looking at in making an equity investment. So can you outline what that is and then explain whether you're focusing more on extraction or processing in terms of those investments?
Thank you, Senator. There's no criteria in such that we're looking for equity investments as a deliberate approach. I think the way I would view it and describe it, ma'am, is that what we want to do is achieve the outcomes of improved investment, performance, and production within the mining space particularly. And therefore, we're talking to companies about what would make them more successful over the long haul. In some cases, we've taken equity associated with direct DOW investment through the IBAS and DPA programs.
I'm not being clear, I think. So what determines whether you think a particular company is a good choice for that equity investment, and how do you determine that criteria, and then how do you decide whether you've been successful or not?
Thank you, Senator. So thank you for clarifying that. So we conduct a robust diligence process. So we actually have we have an internal effort through our global investment and economic security team to do FOCI and intelligence analysis and counterintelligence analysis. We couple that with external market analysis to understand the production rates of this particular mine or whatever it might be associated with their place in the market. We then add in additional experts from both internal to the government, within Jeff's team, or within others, our partners within OSC and other agencies, to determine whether or not we think this mine can meet the targets that we have. That is generally an increase in production from one number to another. And then, ma'am, sorry.
Did you have something else you wanted
No,
to add?
I just want to say then we couple that all together, we make a reasonable business case analysis, we hope is, that determines what the right mix of direct investment and or debt may be to meet those requirements for the country.
And then can you answer the extraction versus processing question?
We're not overly indexed on, our goal is to go ahead for every one of the critical minerals we've identified, which is 20 plus critical minerals. We're creating what we call a value chain, which goes from the mine all the way through production, refining, to recycling. The goal is to go ahead and provide an adequate number of investments at each of those places, whether directly through the DOW, through our partner agencies, or through private capital, to make sure that we're investing appropriately across each of those elements.
And can you tell me, my understanding is that the biggest issue here is not China's control of the actual critical minerals themselves, it's the processing that they do that nobody else is doing. So how are we focusing on the processing in ways that allow us to build that supply that we're going to need?
I'll let Mr. Frankson weigh in on that one.
Thank you, sir. Senator, for each critical mineral that we look at, as Honorable Catanazzi pointed out, we build a supply chain map across the board from the raw material to the finished product and look at each stage with a domestic focus, specifically on Department of War requirements, but then building that into the broader domestic requirement piece. One of the key aspects is where does China or other competitors control over that particular critical mineral? And so it's a different story for each one, but each one we target is how do we make this investment along the entire supply chain so that we're not making an isolated investment in one stage of the process, and that it has a feeding and receiving mode in terms of the rest of the supply chain so that we build an integrated domestic and joint partner capability.
And so are we investing in any processing capability?
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, absolutely. The goal is to go ahead and work across the entire supply value chain, and that requires us having raw material inputs, processing, and the ability to go ahead and move that further into the supply chain.
And can you tell us what companies are doing that processing and the difference between what they're doing versus what China's doing? Because again, my understanding is one of the challenges is that China is able to do the work without any requirements that affect their workforce.
Senator, yesterday we provided your offices, the whole committee, a copy of an antimony value chain, which breaks that down in detail as an example of the type of analysis we're doing. It gets into the details of companies and production rates. We'll be happy to go ahead and provide additional insight into those value chains, which gets into that. And we'll provide specific comments on the companies that are performing that we're looking to invest in those sectors going forward.